Welcome to Mojo the Movies. I'm Eric, and this is a special Avengers edition, and we are talking spoilers, so be warned. We've assembled a great panel today. Some experts. We have Manny, who is the director of Mojo the Movies. How you doing, Manny?
I'm very good, Eric.
Wait a minute. If you're here, who's directing?
It's actually our lovely director, Phoebe.
Hey, Phoebe. All right, so Phoebe also is a fan of Avengers, hasn't seen it. Justin, on the other hand, has. Justin is a producer in our comic books department. How you doing, Justin?
Very, very good. How are you?
So we've all seen Infinity War, and as I said, this is a spoiler review. So, you know, we're going heavy in detail, no holds barred. If you don't want to know details, check out our spoiler-free review, which you can also find on our main page. But this is, I mean, we're you know, spoiler alert. Let's get right into it. A little bit of a recap, a little bit of spoiler talk. What'd you think?
Right off the movie, right off the beginning of the movie, I thought this is no holds barred. Right away, we're in the movie 7 minutes, and two major characters from the Thor universe bite the bullet, which is Heimdall, which I kind of had a feeling they were going to kill him to give Thor some like driving force.
So Idris gets a bit of screen time.
He gets a bit of screen time. He does something pretty cool, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
And the one that kind of like shocked me because he was a huge fan favorite is Loki. He bites the bullet right at the beginning. Very dramatic, good banter between him and Thanos.
And this seems like a final death. This is not like...
This looked pretty final to me, I think. And Thanos made it clear that no more resurrections. That's it for you.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, I kind of saw that direction happening, like, especially with the end of Thor Ragnarok. I was kind of like, all right, this seems like a fitting end for Loki. If, you know, he was hired by Thanos, he didn't finish the job, probably not that happy about it. So I kind of saw it in the stars, but the way it was handled was really well done.
And so then the rest of the movie, because I mean, there's so many storylines that are intersecting. There's so many story arcs that are taking all kinds of directions. How did you feel, you as a big comic book fan and a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, how do you feel that they handled it? Did the Russo brothers get it right?
I think the Russo brothers with this movie have cemented themselves as like the best comic book directors of all time. And that's not necessarily to say that they've made the best comic book movies in terms of taking comic book properties and adapting them to the big screen. I still think that Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy is up there. But in terms of like taking very comic booky stories and making like really interesting and like honest to the source material movies, with Civil War and now this, and Winter Soldier before that, I think they've really cemented themselves as like, we know how to adapt this material. Because this movie felt like a crossover event in the comic books. It really did have that, you know, cutting back and forth between all these storylines and balancing them all really well. It's not something that we've seen very often, especially considering like we've seen it fail
many times
in the last year, these crossover kind of movies. And I just think that they have a knack for that kind of storytelling because they really did give all these characters like a moment to shine.
Yeah, well, you know, you were saying that, Manny, too, that all the characters kind of, you know, they were there, they served their purpose, and some had more time to shine, some had less, but all of them, you know, in some strange way also really kind of intersected with weird counterparts.
Yeah, I find what they did is they took like the powerful characters who or have been powerful before, they took them and they put them on Titan. Then you had the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of traveling space, trying to beat Thanos to where each stone was. That's kind of their thing. They're the space travelers. You had Thor deal with a bit of the mythological aspect when he had to kickstart the star again to make his new weapon. And then you had kind of like the ground infantry guys, like you got your Captain Americas, your Black Widows, Rhodey, Falcon. All these guys really were like, okay, we are the feet on the ground. We're gonna kind of dispose and hold this at bay. And it kind of justifies why they go to Wakanda. What they want to do there is to separate Vision from the Mind Stone to try to keep him alive. And the fact that they got the soldiers there to fight off Thanos' grunts while he was off on Titan and nowhere to get the other two stones, and he sends his lackeys kind of to go get the other ones, that one stone, and you have these, again, these soldier characters, these guys that are fighting for the greater good, that are put in this crazy situation. You have them there right on the ground, and you have your Black Panther there as well, who kind of is like super soldierous. There's this great scene where him and Cap are running almost at the same speed, and they're just charging into this battle, and you just see them both jump, and they kind of just jump like right into the action, and it's like, whoa, we don't get that. We didn't get that feeling with any other movie. This was really like, I love Joss Whedon, but this is not only the best Avengers movie.
Yeah.
I think it may be one of the best superhero movies ever made.
Well, because they took all these characters and they did them all justice,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, I loved when you have, you know, Doctor Strange and is it Thor? No, Doctor Strange. Who did he kind of go head? Who did he butt heads with?
Iron Man.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Iron Man and Doctor Strange, or then Thor and Star-Lord.
Thor and Star-Lord was really funny.
I just, you know, these kind of disparate type of corners of the universe that are kind of blending together. For me, the VIPs, not the VIPs, the MVPs were the Guardians and Doctor Strange and Thor. To me, all of those guys really made the movie shine. And I feel, you know, one of the commenters in our spoiler-free review mentioned how the look of Guardians of the Galaxy seemed to seep into this, and I appreciate that. The kind of the color scheme, the spatial patterns. There was a lot of Guardians
the overall look of the phases. Phase 1 was kind of like a throwback to these old fantasy magic movies with Thor. We had like that Indiana Jones style color palette with the first Captain America. Iron Man everything was slick and cool and modern looking. And then in Phase 2, because that was kind of like the first time they kind of changed the universe around of everything they've built based on the first Avengers, it kind of gave us this matte color palette where, you know,
a bit grittier. Yeah.
Because kind of the movies were going in that direction. And now we got Guardians of the Galaxy, which opened up this nice visual palette. So it's like, now guys, remember there's like a whole galaxy. Look at all these cool color schemes. And I find that's where they kind of went with Phase 3. So you could tell just by the overall, the way the way the movies go down, the look, it kind of reflects what's going on in the universe. And again, that's a credit to the production team behind these movies and making a 10-year epic.
The other thing about like the way that they're using these colors is like a lot of the shots that you see are kind of almost designed like comic book splash pages. Like there's a lot of these like just a few standouts, like when they're trying to rip the gauntlet off of Thanos and they're all kind of using their powers individually to like isolate individual parts of him. Like Doctor Strange is like holding his hand while Spider-Man is webbing the gauntlet and trying to pull it off, and you have Mantis on top using her power on his brain. Like it's just, that's something that you would see all the time as like a 2-page spread in a comic book. But these comic book movies for a long time have been like shying away from doing these
more
like
linear,
outlandish kind of like epic poses. And even when Thor makes his big epic return, it's like exactly out of a comic. It's like he slams down, and it's just like, oh my God, Thor's back.
The music the music changes.
Yeah.
It gives him a big reveal. The camera movement, everything was
God,
there.
that scene is just so amazing.
And we saw it together in the press screening. And I know I nerded out for a moment. I was like, that was epic. But being in a full theater last night when I watched it again, that's right, it's been not even a week and I've already seen it twice. Watching it again and having the theater cheer at that moment, I mean, again, it gives you that feeling that the Russo brothers not only got it right, but they brought out just the fun, like that epic moment. You need that. It's not just an ex machina moment. Oh, Thor's here, great. You know, like, oh, look, that was gonna. It's that moment. It's the way it's delivered. It's the way it's executed. This movie hits on so many points and gets so many points right.
But I think we need to talk about that ending. I mean, it's like we've been dancing around it.
We've been dancing around it.
You know, okay, so snap of a fingers, half of life, not even humanity, half of the living, existing creatures just, you know, snuffed out, like a
turn to
ash. So how do we deal with this? Where is it going?
I think we live in the time of the internet, which kind of sucks. So like such a crazy ending. We know, and Marvel does its big panels and says, we're going to make all these movies.
Right, we know
so
which
we
movies
know
are coming
some
back.
of the people that go, they have planned sequels.
Well, let's name the major ones who are gone.
I'll leave this up to Justin.
Yeah.
So what frustrated me, and not in a way that took away from the movie, but what frustrated me about the ending and what makes me fearful about the sequel is two things. One, I feel like if they hadn't killed off or turned to ash characters like Spider-Man, Doctor Strange,
Black Panther.
I feel like I would be more willing to buy into the fact that these characters might really be gone. Like if Bucky and maybe one of the Guardians, not Star-Lord, but like had fewer characters turn to ash, I feel like I would have been more, oh my God, like these characters are gone for good. The fact that they like took out some heavy hitters makes me think that there is hope for these characters come the second movie.
There would have to be. That's the whole point, is that, sorry. Yeah,
no, but just to say, I feel like the earlier deaths in the movie, if we are going to be reversing deaths, I hope that that doesn't include the deaths of Loki and Gamora, which were super impactful and like really important moments, and I hope that they don't undercut those by being like, snap of the fingers, everyone's alive again. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we know that they're going to have to bring some of these characters back, unless the subsequent movies all take place in a timeline before the events of Infinity War, which could happen. Yeah. I mean, it could be. It would be a cheap way to do it.
It would be a cheap way to do it, but I do feel like they kind of set that up with just what happens to Vision in this movie, right? So you have Scarlet Witch, Thanos is there. He's literally just knocking out Avenger after Avenger, trying to get to the Vision, because that's where the last stone is. And you have Scarlet Witch, who destroys the stone. It explodes. It becomes a huge event. He literally says, I feel your loss. I've experienced it as well. But time is irrelevant. And he just snaps his fingers, turns back time, and gets that final stone. So for me, I feel like they set it up. They do something before with Doctor Strange.
Well, yeah, I was going to mention. So my theory here, I guess all of our theory, we all came to the same thing individually, but when he's sitting there having a bit of a seizure, and they go to him and they say, what happened? And he had looked at all the different possibilities, all the millions of possibilities of where things could go. And then he says, there's only one where we win, basically. Maybe what we saw in the end is just one of a million possibilities, and if they can turn back time the way Thanos did, if they can turn back this time, then all the people who turn to ash will no longer be ash.
Exactly.
People.
And I feel like he kind of knew, Doctor Strange saw the future that we're all waiting for, and I think that our theories that we had before, I know most of mine were wrong, and I'll be like, cool, man, like I'm all right, it's okay to be wrong. It's real life. So I find that Doctor Strange knew that the only way they could win is by giving Thanos that time stone. And I think that's something that will be overlooked, why he did it. I think everyone can kind of get that.
So he can do his thing, scrub back in time, Superman style.
Superman style, and bring back those guys who kind of turned to ash at the end of this movie.
So where was Ant-Man?
Again, we got the classic too many character movie trope where they're mentioned in passing. I think he said that Hawkeye and Ant-Man took deals with the government to be under house arrest, which we do kind of see in the Ant-Man trailer. One thing I don't think we should overlook is that there's a very powerful character coming, which is Adam Warlock. So in the end credits scenes of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, he's mentioned. And of course, the end credits scene is the Captain Marvel reveal.
Right, so is Captain Marvel going to be the one who's going to turn everything back?
I think, so in the comic that this movie is based on, which is Infinity Gauntlet, Adam Warlock plays a very important role. But I feel like because he's so off in the future, it would be weird to introduce him as the savior of this scenario. What's interesting to point out too is when he snaps his fingers at the end of the movie, in the comic book, the gauntlet remains intact, and it becomes like this big, like MacGuffin that we got to get the gauntlet to be able to reverse the decision. In this movie, it seemed like the gauntlet, once it was used, started to disintegrate, and it's didn't look like reuse was possible. And then when we see Thanos at the end of the movie, and he's on the beach like he talked about, just enjoying the sunset, it didn't look like he had it.
In his vision that he had, he didn't have the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Where he sees Gamora as a child,
right.
He didn't have it. But when he sits down on the beach, you get to actually see the entire damage that it did to his arm, and it's kind of on his face. Like he's like, I did something, I have all the stones, but I feel like it's even a heavy weight for him to wield that gauntlet.
And I think we should just briefly talk about, in talking about Thanos and like the wear this whole event took on him. I did not expect this kind of arc for Thanos, where they turned him into a sympathetic and interesting villain.
Right, because, I mean, essentially, he's not evil. He's just seeking balance. You know, that life feeds on life, and you know, it's not that he wants the death of so many people. He just wants there to be balance in the universe. So I don't think he's, and kudos to Josh Brolin for bringing that
delivering an insanely
amazing performance.
Wow, just like breathtaking performance. There was so much emotion in his purple, wrinkly face. Like
grimace.
You wouldn't, but the grimacy face. You wouldn't think it when you see those trailers or when you see him in the first Avengers movie and he gives that smirk.
Or his few lines of dialogue in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. You're like, okay, is this what we're gonna get for 2.5 hours in Infinity War? A guy like saying crazy quotes, but I don't know.
So to wrap things up, because we could talk for hours and hours and hours.
Truly.
Where do we go from here?
I'm actually excited now for Phase 4.
Because you don't know.
Because I don't know. It kind of like, we do know and we don't know, but I'd like to see how they're going to do it. Like, we know what characters are going to stay dead, what characters are not going to stay dead, but I just find that they've opened this whole new universe and adventure, and now we're f***ing with magic. We're messing with space. People can come from anywhere to help the Avengers. I think we're going to see a lot of Avengers that we would never think to see on the big screen.
Well, we know that works because of Guardian and
and I guess I'm just excited. I'm just excited to see, like, we have these amazing movies now, and especially as comic book fans. I know growing up reading comics, Justin and I still read comics today, and just seeing these amazing storylines come to life, and these actors taking these roles so seriously, where you don't see the actor anymore, and you don't see the costume. You just see the character alive, and I think it's a great time to be a comic book nerd. It's a great time to be a film nerd, because these movies on their own have crazy achievements, stuff that's never been done. Putting such a huge cast together to pull this off is a big event that they did. So I'm very happy with the way everything turned out.
Justin, what do you think?
The future looks bright. 10 years in, and I'm still excited for these movies.
Yeah,
that's a testament to Kevin Feige's production, like his ability to see like the forest from the trees, and just, I don't know. There's just something about these movies that gets me every time, and every time I think, okay, you know, they're starting to go downhill. This movie completely reinvigorated my excitement for these crossover movies, because after Age of Ultron, I wasn't sure, I'll be honest, but now my faith is in the Russo brothers. Yeah, and I guess I might get some flack from this, but DC should take a cue from this, because this is how you do it and do it right. No kidding. Yeah. Let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, guys, for being here. Thank you. And we'll see you back for Infinity War 2, right? Yeah. Sounds good. Right. See you next time. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. I hope they remember you.